Hey guys, so today while I was doing some more thinking, I was going out my day, I was running some errands and I was thinking I listened to this video on Ikigai. There's this really great I didn't even catch his name, he's got a channel, The Future. I'll see if I can. I'm gonna promise a link. No, I'm not gonna promise a link because I don't know if I really want to do that. Um, I'll eventually will do it and talk about Ikigai or whatever. But he was talking about Ikigai and he was doing these kind of phases and like, okay, like what are the things you really want to do? And like I thought a lot about that. So Ikigai, eventually what it is, it's like the Japanese way of like doing what you're meant to do. And it's this process, right? Where you take these four factors. So the four factors are, what does the world need? What are you good at? What do you like to do? And then what makes you money? Those are the four factors, right? And then based off of those four factors, you sort of find whatever like is fits within all four of those factors, the way to do that. And that is like your ikigai. That's the thing that you can pour your whole soul into and then it just sort of runs, right? And as I was thinking about more and more like the different things that I've done, and I have so many projects and all this stuff that I've kind of had behind me, and it's kind of like this wasteland at this point. And I'm like, God, like how do I pick up all these things, right? And I thought that like I've thought of one of the biggest things I feel like I've really struggled with is focus, right? And like really putting like all my soul, like every single thing that I'm doing into something, right? And I've sometimes I always feel like I'm splitting hairs because ultimately I do want to take care of myself. And I do kind of see it all in one universal purpose in my head, but just having like a concrete enough focus, like this is how that fits in, this is how that fits in, and this is how that fits in. And just seeing like all these different factors come together in such a way where I can have a singular like kind of focus on a project. And even though there's a lot of different steps to it, right? And one of the biggest things that I've thought of right now is just my desire to actually like finish something, to actually give value to the world and have something that I'm contributing that isn't coming from or through someone else as a result of them doing it, but is like it this is me putting myself out in the world, offering value, trying to share something and really legitimately share it, really legitimately putting it out there, not for my own good, not so that I can cover up some anxiety, but because I'm legitimately believe in this thing and I believe that it has something to share. Like having something that I really want to share, right? And then just, kind of giving it to all who partake of it. And then doing that thing to such a standard where I myself am proud to share it, right? And I've done that a few times with a few things. And I think the biggest thing I've had to ask myself is I don't know, have I really ever committed to the process? Have I really ever recognized, okay, this is what's going to take to do this thing, right? Or what I believe it needs to do this thing, committed to that process, done it long enough to gauge the results, and then make adjustments based off of what's going on and what I'm feeling, right? And I and some things like people say is like being slow to change your mind. I was listening to this thing where she said, this Tatiana James, she's this other YouTuber, smoking hot. But she's dating the guy from Project Life Mastery. I remember him actually when he was doing all the Kindle self-publishing stuff, and so it's kind of cool to see like his journey, right? Because I remember when he was doing that stuff, and then he's just doing it now. He's dating this smoking hot lady, and it's like, good for him, good for him. But it's been an interesting thing, like seeing just like in my own growth, like what is the things that I've decided and that I've really followed through with, and it worked out because I followed through with that decision. And like, what are the things that I always change my mind about? And I've noticed that sometimes, like, when I change my mind a lot or I'm not, it's because I lack clarity. And so I really thought, okay, well, what is the clarity that I'm looking for? And I'll write. And sometimes I think what constituting a decision is, right? Because sometimes you'll be like, oh, I want that. Oh, but I want that. Oh, but I want that. And I don't necessarily think that's a lack of decisiveness, but I think maybe the decision comes in making, like, not only writing a plan, because oftentimes I'll even get to the plan of writing a plan and even start executing it. But for me, a lot of that out is still sort of like trying things, right? And just watching how it goes and seeing how I feel about it. And I think one of the things that I really struggled with, especially when I was younger, that I almost compensate too much because when I was younger, sometimes like when I would commit to something, and even if it wasn't working, I would be like, no, I'm just gonna try and force it. And I did that so often that now, like, one of my first instincts is I'm doing something and I'm always watching the response. A good example is just kind of with my joints and stuff like that. I didn't really take care and like my basketball regimen and like understand when I was younger the effects of not caring for my body and how running myself through all these rigorous exercises would have an impact. And people would tell me, but I never prioritized that self care and like throttled it down. And then based off of, okay, well, this leg's hurting or that's hurting, I would just be like, no, I'm going to be tough and I'm going to power through it. But then you do that, you have bad ankles, you have bad joints in your knees, and then like everything's just dying. And then eventually you're paralyzed and you can't do anything. And like even now, I still have so much joint issues, right? Like I actually, my left heel, my left Achilles, everything has just been killing me. Um, and it's been harder, and I can't even like properly move around it and walk on it anymore. And like it feels like there's something broken in there. And there's a part of me that just wants to keep going and pushing through it. But I realize no, what I need to do is I need to see a professional or something. And then like honestly in my day, I hate it, but I'm gonna have to probably block out a day. Not a block out a day, but block out an hour in my day that's focused to just treatment on that. And that's a little bit of a bummer because like I don't want to necessarily like, oh, that's just one more thing to focus and do. But I've realized like this thing is to the point where like it's hindering my ability to walk properly. um so that's an adjustment I have to make, and if I'm being too slow to read that, there's going to be consequences, just like when I snapped my Achilles. And so I think making those decisions, but then it's recognizing like, okay, when do I burn my bridges? When have I made the decision? In Malagasy, the word to decide, and in most languages, well, actually, I think in Latin as well, to decide means like to cut off, right? To cut it, topica, right? So when you meet topica, you make a decision, right? Um, and that's part of like you cut off all other solutions. So I always think in my process of figuring out what it is I want to do, as I'm exploring and trying and experimenting, how do I actually make the decision, right? And like for me, oftentimes like I'll go through something and like I can already go through and say, oh yeah, this isn't gonna work, this isn't gonna do it, right? um Another example of when I pushed through was my relationship with my ex-wife. Right, that was a really bad one because I thought, well, if I just grind it through, it'll get better. No, it doesn't get better. Right? Oftentimes, things will grow in the magnitude of the seeds you are seeing. So something feels good as you're doing it, or like as it goes through its process. Not to say that there isn't discomfort, of course, right? But if something ultimately feels rewarding once it goes through a cycle and you kind of go through that and you recognize, okay, this is it, chances are as you apply more energy into that, it's only going to magnify and grow. Rarely do things change direction or change their nature as you put more energy into them. Oftentimes, things will only or like clarify and magnify the nature that is present there. Whether like that which is in the microcosm is within the macrocosm. And, you know, things build onto their own likeness. So if something's negative and you do it for a week, chances are if you do it long enough, it's going to feel bad. Now there are some things, right, where that's not always necessarily true, but that's based on a more subjective experience and based off of knowledge, right? So, for instance, let's say I hate getting up early in the morning, right? But I know it's good for me, right? Now, there might be a part of you that just hates getting up, and maybe you just don't need to get up. Maybe that's just not how you real. So maybe that's not the greatest example. How about this? Let's say you want to write a book, right? And you enjoy writing, but you always have anxiety in starting, right? As you go through that process of like pushing through, right? Then you go through and write, and you feel good about yourself, and you're like, yeah, okay, I'm writing, right? But um, let's say you go through and you're writing and you hate it, then it's like a question, then why are you doing it, right? Because then it is very essential. Like if you hate doing something, why would you force yourself to do it, right? And there are some things where it's like, well, I hate eating. No, you don't. Like your body, you might like not like eating certain things, and it might not necessarily have the best diet for what's around you, and there might be some adjustments there. But like you not eat long enough, everything around you is gonna start looking really good, right? So I just think like human beings deep down inside, we know what's best for us. And so this week I'd made this schedule and I've just been, kind of troubleshooting, grinding it out, being like, okay, I want my work schedule to kind of look like this. I kind of like want to do this and I'm trying to push that there. And then I was just paying attention to like my energy and where my focus was going. And throughout the week, there was a lot of focus and want for business stuff. And I was like, okay, maybe I want to start business. Maybe it's a quick get rich quick scheme. And I just sat down with myself. It's like, okay, no, like what is actually going on here? Right? Because you've had all these crazy schemes, you've had all these ideas in the past, and none of that came through. And what was the issue? It's like, okay, because I didn't feel like it was working on my purpose. Okay, what are the projects that are figuring in your purpose? And there was two of them, right? There's Mr. Reference, and then essentially like my writing career. And like for me right now, but at the top of that list for the writing career, it was like finishing the project with the Girl and the Beast because I felt like putting myself through the gauntlet of finishing the Girl and the Beast, that would be like enough of like, you have become a man, my son. Like that's my challenge, right? And the reason I want to do that is because I want to go out, put that out, and finish it, right? And I recognize that self-publishing, it might be trash or this or that, but I don't believe in that because I do look at is like I'm an author and I look at myself that way, right? I look at myself as like, yeah, I'm a professional author. I've been paid not very much, but I take it seriously. And it's like my beyond my vocation, it's my profession, it's what I do, right? And that's one of the I won't even say I even identify with it because I don't care so much about the story so much as I care about who I am as a writer and how I'm going about and applying myself into my work. So it's less about maybe even the quality of the product that comes out, but more about how I know I apply myself every day. Like how do I approach my days, right? And that's where that sense of self-worth comes. And that's what the Girl and the Beast was the top of that. And I realized, yeah, like that's the biggest symbol. Like if I can do that, right? Like as I'm doing that, that's the thing that's going to like push me. And I noticed that like earlier this year when I was doing Operation Tipping Point, I was doing all these courses and I thought, well, I'm taking care of all these things. But I realized the biggest thing that was making the impact was that I was writing in this book every day and that I was working on it every single day and it was working and was coming out and it was very good. And I was very proud of what was going on there. And I realized I was doing it and having all these other plans and I lost momentum as I stopped focusing on this one thing. And I realized of all the things that was the most vital, like these other things were super critical to the support, the meditation, taking the education courses, going out and making sure that I was getting like sunlight and doing all these activities, meeting people, eating, talking to my friends. But the biggest, most central thing I realized that was part of that was the Girl and the Beast and writing into that and like really making progress in that. And I said, okay, that's where I need to put my energy on. That's the point, right? Because if I push that harder than anything else, that's going to advance me further, right? And then everything else is going to support that. And, like I said, I've talked a lot about the promise and I always thought, well, what was that promise? And so and it was that, if I focus and I do my purpose, I'll never have to do anything else again. Like I'll never have to walk or compromise that. So I thought, okay, writing right now, I have this whole big career. I want to do this. I want to like write all these biggest things, but all that's encapsulated in this one goal, which I'm gonna start calling Project Thunderhead. And I actually think, or Thunder Ahead or Thunderhead. I haven't, just like Thunderhead. But the idea is like, okay, like go, like this is the thing. And my purpose, like if someone's like, what is your purpose right now? It's like, well, my purpose is to do all these great grand, in the grand scheme of things, to educate and entertain and like show people an example of what their best become, like do everything I can. But I've realized like if it's like, what is my very singular purpose on this day-to-day basis? It's like finish the Girl and the Beast, document. And documenting, because I was watching a Gary Vee show, because I had this feeling for business, and I was like, well, what is that feeling coming from? And I'd recognize that, okay, like I'm having this incessant feel and need that I want to build a platform. I want to be able to get something, like obviously because I want to monetize. I want to be able to sell my books. I don't want to share it. But then obviously I want to be able to take care of myself. I want to know that there's something that's going to be there that's going to last. And I haven't shown a lot of faith in the Girl and the Beast, right? I'll be honest, I haven't done that. And I realized, like, but I do believe that if it was done well, if it was done right, it absolutely would be worth, I would pay for it. Like, I would pay to read The Girl and the Beast, right? Because, like, I've been paying for books, I bought books, and, like, I would pay for The Girl and the Beast. And I told myself that, like, I would pay for it. Um, so it's like, so why don't you pay for it? Why don't you do the work? Why don't you invest the money? Why don't you do the things it actually takes? And so, and I'd realized I was getting this desire for this sort of business side and this platform building and like just the idea of like building and spreading that influence. And like I had all this other extra energy that really couldn't go into writing, right? Because there was that other part of it. And before it was fractured. I was doing that, but then I kept trying to do the Mr. Reference. And I realized the issue was I wasn't focusing all that energy. So I plan where I was like, oh yeah, so I'm gonna in the afternoon focus on doing Mr. Reference, and which is the education thing that I'm really passionate about, but it's not in with the Girl and the Beast. And I realized, no, like the aspect of my career and my life right now is I want to focus on this sort of author, content creator, influencer, example, entertainer side of me, and specifically write good stories, tell good stories, right? And be an example. Tell good stories and be an example. Like that's really what it is. And everything needs to support that project so that I can keep going to the next project and then to the next project. And so I at first thought, okay, I'm going to spend all my time and energy building this platform for Mr. Reference. But then I realized, no, it needs to go back into The Girl and the Beast, Peter Clampton, back what I was doing way before when I was, before I was married and all that things. And I'm like, I need to go back there. Like, I need to go back. Like, that's what I was doing. That's what I was focused on. And that's why I was gaining momentum. And then, I made that, very sort of destructive decision to be with the wrong person. And that was fine. But it's like learning from that. And like for me, so in 2021, it's going to be at the end of March. It'll have been 6 years since I published volume 2 of The Girl and the Beast. And I said like, and I told myself, I'm like, I'm not letting that get to 8 before the thing's done. I'm not letting that get to 8. Like by 8 years, that series will be finished, and I want to be like, I'm not saying like I'm never gonna touch The Girl and the Beast after that, but I'm saying like this series, this run, this idea that I've had, it's gonna be out and it's gonna be done because I'm tired of it. It's like this needs to be done. This should have been finished. This needed to be finished done ages ago because there's all these other things, and I'm stacking up, and I can't keep asking for bonus years. So I have this golden opportunity where I'm safe finally. And I realized, okay, now's the time. And I was getting all this desire for like this business stuff. I was like, oh, yeah, like I want to do drop shipping and make all these things and make all this money. And I realized, yeah, there is like this financial anxiety there. And it's not pressure and I always said like, I don't want to put financial pressure on the book. And I realized deep down inside, it was just, I didn't think it was good enough. I didn't think I was good enough. And maybe I needed that time because maybe it wasn't. Maybe it really wasn't. Um, but I finished a book every year since I decided I want to become an author. I've started and finished and drafted a book every single year, right? And I realized, as crazy and chaotic and bouncing around as my life done, it's like I've done it. Right? That's why I have 5 volumes of this thing done. I have five done. And I was like, okay, so like I just need to start up again. And so for January, like as I'm starting Project Thunderhead, I'm just like, you know what? I just need to start getting in the process and seeing like, let's get this done. Let's get it done and write it. And it's going to be extremely, and I'm setting some extremely aggressive goals, right? And I mean, even if I don't finish it in the 6 months, you better believe it'll be done in the 8 months that I'm thinking it'll take, right? Because that's my like that's like my stretch goal. But like my idea is that by the time 8 months from now, I want to release the third one, right? And I want to be good enough to be able to draw my clip art and put that in there, like my own clip art, because I in this volume two, the clip art was very back and forth and it wasn't consistent, and I feel like that hurt the quality of it. And like I want to get to the point to where I can make the art that's good enough to get there. And so I've got to start doing that. And I said, well, I'm doing this journey. I'm going through this extensive process of trying to train myself to get good enough to draw this clip art as well as to write these books and to do it well. And I said, document that, share that with people, right? And that's, your business. Because it's like, what's the value I'm giving there? I'm showing people the value. I'm being an example of saying, here's my dream. I always tell people, here's my dream, right? And go for your dreams. It's like, this is what it looks like. So it's like, here's my dream. This is what I'm trying to do. And I'm going to document that. And that's like my job. It's like my job is to document me going through my dreams. And, that's why I'm doing these videos. That's why I'm doing all this stuff. And, who knows if anyone will read this. Read this. How do you read a video, Oni? Um, but who knows if anyone will watch this. But I've realized that's what I want, right? Like, and to me, that's like, and I've always had like these fun, fantastic names, like, like my last one was Project Tipping Point and like Operation Flying Eagle, and now it's like Operation Thunderhead, right? And or Project Thunderhead. I haven't decided yet. Either way, Thunderhead. Um, and that's basically finish the girl and the beast, right? Finish the girl and the beast, and get it project. I'm like, the idea is by August 28th, which was my ex and I, that would be our anniversary. We talked about, maybe coming together, putting things together. I don't know. It's a long story. But I realized August 28th, I realized that's the goal. Project Thunderhead, August 28th, right? Like publish that first like volume 3. So cuz what I'm going to do is probably like a month before I'm going to shut down all the old publishing. I'm going to shut down all the old publishing. And then the clip art for volume 2, I might leave it. But honestly, a part of me is just thinking like, I'm going to leave the clip art for volume 1 because that was done by someone who's really good and consistent. Volume 2, I'm going to, I might do it, redo it. I might leave it. I'm not sure. But then after that, 3 and on, it's like, I want to do that clip art. I want it to be mine, which means I need to not suck because it's going to suck. And I realize that clip art's probably not going to be great, but it's like, I want to do it at least where it's good enough so that people feel good about what they're purchasing. Um, and I know the writing, I know this story is good enough. Like, I absolutely believe in that 100%. So I'm not so worried about that. And then the idea is just being able to do that, then fund the project moving forward, And then it's like, so I'm going to build an audience and just really just document and show people like, hey, this is what going for your dreams looks like. And for me, like, it's always been more about than just it's always been more than just, okay, well, what is it like I can profit? But it's really, I know, obviously being able to have an impact and fulfillment, that's something a lot of our generation's been looking at. So I'm not necessarily special in that regard. Anyway, I've just been rambling and I have lots of thoughts, but this is like, I feel like that it's coming together. I am scared because I don't know how it's going to work out. And there's a part of me that's like, well, I already told people, and there's all these people thinking I would do Mr. Reference. It's like, dude, if Mr. Reference if Mr. Reference sells for, $50 million 8 years from now, all those other people who think you're this, that, or whatever on you, it will not matter. So it's about like that long goal and recognizing, okay, maybe in the short term, I really just need to, like for this year, Project Thunderhead, finish The Girl and the Beast, publish The Girl and the Beast, and then, what other platform I build to do that, put the next thing on it. And then once I have those skills, then I can transfer that and put that into, Mr. Reference, which is ultimately what I'm trying to do. So like I kind of look at everything I'm doing now to train myself with the skills so that I can ultimately build that as well. And then, sort of have these two things as I'm growing up and can you obviously diversify myself financially and build that legacy, start actually building wealth, for my family and things like that. But then, it's all this grandmaster plan. And I guess it started a long time ago. I thought, it's like, oh yeah, this is the first day of the rest of my life. But it's like, man, I've been actually a success in a lot of ways for a while. Like when I moved out to New York and when I did Operation Tipping Point and I finished those courses, and when I started, like Mr. Reference did a lot of things, and I started it and I tried it, right? And I failed and I wasn't able to go through, but it doesn't mean it's not done. It just, I recognize, okay, I'm strained on resources. I'm strained on like the ability to be able to finish and go through all this material, and like it's not building out how I thought it would because like I simply didn't have the resources. And within myself, I didn't want to bootstrap that project, right? It was never meant to be bootstrapped, right? And but I realized with like the Girl and the Beast, selling that stuff online and being able to build out that Clampton verse and what I'm trying to do there, I'm like, oh yeah, I absolutely want to do that. I want to bootstrap that. And now I've kind of been given the emotional and mental, like I gave myself the green light, and there was a promise, one day, just laying in bed from God, like, if you focus and do what you need to do, I'm going to take care of you. And I'd never heard that before. I'd never felt that. I always felt like I had to do something else or I was screwed. And for the first time in my life, it's like if you put everything you have into what you love, you will never have to look at anything else again. You know what I mean? Like if someone said like I'm going to give you permission and it's like and if you go after this girl, imagine if someone said this, it's like pick any girl. I mean, if you like girls, if you like guys, go for you, whoever you like. But imagine someone's like, okay, pick anyone you want. And if you go for them, you will marry, have kids with them, and be perfectly happy. But it's got to be that one. Like, that's a maturity thing because then it's like, oh, I have to really know what I want. Because then that's not an opportunity or resourcefulness thing. That's a suddenly I have to be super clear, right? That issue isn't, oh, I've had to do this or I've had to do that or like, well, this is what I could get. It's like, no, it's like this is it. I'm going to tell you, pick her, say her, like her. Is it her? Like who is it? And then if you go for her, you will get her and you'll have everything you want with her. But you have to know, you have to deal and work and be willing to make all the steps, do all the work that will require, right? So it's like, well, okay, I want to date like this, like super insane, super crazy actress. It's like, okay, get a bunch of DMs out, start doing this, and then you just start working through the process of that. And obviously, like, because sometimes it's like that's so pie in the sky, and obviously, the more pie in the sky it is, the higher and deeper and crazier the dream. It's so hard to see like how do I get from here to there, but that's what I really want, and that was like what I was struggling with like the Girl and the Beast and all this stuff. And I was like, man, like I'm struggling to see like where I get from this squalor that I'm feeling to follow that up there. And I realized, oh yeah, like once I got that promise, I was like, okay, I want to do this huge pie in the sky thing. And I was building it and kind of creating that vision. And then I was like, I have no idea how it's going to do that. And I was so paralyzed trying to find a bridge instead of just saying, hey, stop trying to figure out a bridge. That's not your job. Your job is just to focus on what's the purest expression of that you can do right now. And I think when I started asking myself that question and I got like that green light of like, oh yeah, the purest expression of going after the girl, going to the thing, asking her out on a date, going up to her, like It was just being direct. It wasn't being like, oh, I've got to like get nice clothes. I've got to do all this stuff. It was just go right to her and ask her out. And for me, it was like, write the girl on the beast, sell that stuff, and it, and people like it. And then I'm an author. And then I go through, write a novels. I sell those novels to traditional publishers, agents, and then I'm doing that. And then I'm helping my friends do that as well. I'm building up this company on the side, sell that company for a bunch of money, make an animation studio. That's it. That's it for me. And when I was willing to admit that, it was write the girl and the beast. If I write the girl and the beast, the rest will be taken care of. So consider the lilies. I have been talking to Ramley for 30 minutes, but I'm pumped, baby. Pumped. So it's a rest day, and I'm just gonna keep reading. I'm finishing up Ready Player One, and then on to Ready Player Two after that. So Project Thunderhead will soon be a go-go.